Okay.
But we
Okay.
should also pray for Jane Syme because she's got lots of things happening.
Yep, yes.
Lots of things.
We still can't hear you. Jane, yeah, just go out of the meeting and come back in again. Just like leave the meeting. And when you come back in, make sure you click on join with computer audio.
As she is working on that, I want to ask, so did we have an opportunity to read Peter Enns, not Wendy, but the rest of us? Did we read chapters up through chapter 3, possibly? Okay. So I had a question to start with. When we talk about what we're reading, I'm hoping that we can also, if possible, refer to, if it's possible, wherever it is that Peter Enns is pointing us to. So if it's Exodus or Proverbs, or
Yeah.
if we can,
He does a pretty good job of including what he wants us to have.
Yes. So if
Those,
we
which is
can,
why I didn't put everything in.
yeah. If we can weave that into our conversation, then I think we'll be able to be able to make sure we're Bible studying too.
Proverbs 8 is really interesting though.
Pardon me?
Proverbs 8, chapter 8. I did read that.
Okay. Shall we take a look at that?
Sure. Stayed.
You want an orange, Kita? Don't look at me like that.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yay.
Okay. Anything in particular you might want to comment on Proverbs 8, Sharon, and what he has to say about any of that?
Well, I was struck by how pertinent to today's time it seemed. A call to wisdom, a call to knowledge. When, I feel like we're living in the middle of that meme that says that my ignorance is as good as your knowledge. It's not. Knowledge is really important. And I feel like, I have not read all of Proverbs, I must say, but this particular chapter seems very much a call to learning and to knowing, and
Yeah.
so.
It's so, I have a hard time, and maybe I should just buckle into it. A hard time trying to separate everything he is saying about translation, transposition. I absolutely love what he had to say about on page 37. He says, so here's my point, which he says many times. We do not share the ancient setting of the original audience of Proverbs. When we read it, we have to transpose it into another key if we hope to connect with it. In fact, the book's very inclusion in the collection of for everyone books is already a significant transposition. Otherwise, this ancient book would forever remain an artifact from the past, a decaying monument to a long ago time and a faraway place. Now, as much as that just makes me sing, it takes work, doesn't it? To transpose. You can, I can't do that on the fly. Some people can.
I can't, Thelma can.
Yep, I've known people who can transpose on the fly, but it is some hard work. And what transposing demands is a very deep knowledge of music theory. So I think for me, the frustration here lies in that there are so many people who spout things like the 10 Commandments, for example, and who do not have a deep knowledge of musical theory. They've never really studied the Bible. And it's the same thing as liturgical planning. You have to, a liturgist, must know the Book of Common Prayer inside and out before you can riff on it, right?
Yes.
That's I think that there's my frustration is people's lack of knowledge. And then what do? We all know what they do. They take whatever some goofball says as it's truth.
I had a couple of things on chapter 8 in Proverbs that I liked very much. And the funny thing is that Solomon says all these things, and yet we know about him.
Mm-hmm. Well, isn't that another truth?
Right. So 5 and 6, where it says two things I thought. One, I thought, you who are simple gain prudence. You who are foolish gain understanding. I like that. Choose my instruction instead of silver, knowledge rather than choice gold. And then the other thing over on verse, and yes, I have read through all of Proverbs. I'm not being snotty. I just had it was part of my readings. 23.
Verse 23
Verse 23, chapter 8,
Okay.
gets right back to Genesis. It says, well, it starts with 22. The Lord brought me forth as the first of his works, before his deeds of old. I was appointed from eternity, from the beginning, before the worlds began. When there were no oceans, etc., I was given birth, etc. So it's like, I was there when he set the heavens in place, etc. I was filled with day after day with the light, rejoicing. This gets right back to his comment on the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. And it does reinforce, I think, that there is the expectation here in Bible reading is that we know what's all in here. That we know what Genesis said, we know what the whole thing says. You have to be able to understand that, well, whatever this is related to what came before it, and therefore will be related to what comes after it. Whether that's in time or, I think a when is not necessarily linear, as I've said before, but there is that expectation that we know that refers to Genesis, that we know that we know these things, and especially in the New Testament, there is expectation after expectation that we know our Bible, because good Jews know their Bibles.
So do bad Jews.
They did too.
Sharon, you were going to jump in, did you forget it?
No, I was just thinking, I think one of the things that I most appreciate about Pete Enns, which really comes out in this book, is his insistence that the Bible is not static, that it applies to every age, and that it's our responsibility
Yeah.
to figure out how it applies, not how we go back and live in the times in which it was written.
You.
And and that's my biggest quarrel with the inerrant people. Is
Yeah.
that
Oh, hi, Joe.
Is that Ronan?
That's
Yeah.
Ronan.
Hi, Ronan.
How's it going, you
Good to
guys?
see you
Good
smile.
to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Emily's here too, but she's being shy.
Okay. Keep going, Sharon.
um
I'm gonna run to the bathroom.
that the particularly the evangelical view of it meant what it meant to the people, what it meant to God who wrote the Bible. God did not write the Bible.
Right.
Is how we have to interpret it now. I mean, biblical inerrancy is as ridiculous to me as constitutional originalism. But and I like the way Pete steers us away from that.
Yeah. Constantly steers us away from that. Yeah, and
From what
No,
you
no,
said,
I'm
I
just
mean,
following up.
can
Go-
I just finish?
Yeah,
and
finish.
then I'll shut up. And he does it from a knowledgeable theological view. I mean, he knows what he's talking about. He's read, studied, etc. He's not just making this up off the top of his head. And now I'll shut up.
yeah.
Oh, I was just following up on what she said, that kind of our friends who say, God said it. They wrote God said it, they wrote it, that's all there is to it,
Yeah.
And I am, by the way, Sharon, you and I do have a little disagreement on constitutionality, but that's the DAR. And the DAR ladies are just as variety as anybody else, so I can't blame them. But we'll talk later. But yeah, and it's hard to change it when that's what you've been taught, and from the earlier Episcopal Church also. There was taught, well, this is inerrant. As a child, I was, but then we get back to Paul's, I thought of a child, I was a child. So I'm learning a lot here also. Yeah, and yeah, that does, because then if you go with that concept, Sharon, that you and I kind of just go about, then you can have slavery and women have to be subservient and all of those things that we all know are not God's will at all. So I'm there with you.
Or you shuck the whole thing out,
One of the two, yeah, which
which
some of
is
my relatives sadly did.
Yeah.
Rather than take the time to think about it.
yeah.
There was enough interference. I didn't get Sharon's point. Can you re-give that?
Well, I was just saying that one of the things that draws me to Pete Enns and his writings is
But you
that
said something about the evangelical church was doing.
I just think biblical inerrancy is ridiculous. That that's saying that God wrote this, so I must believe.
God said it,
everything
I
that's in
believe it,
it.
that's
Okay.
all there is to it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't grow up any differently. I mean, I think people who espouse a strictly Orthodox viewpoint subscribe to biblical inerrancy, and maybe only with half of the Bible that you got, but you know.
Well, I grew up in church. We were never told, we weren't allowed to question anything. So you grew up in church, you went to church Sunday, you went to church Wednesday nights, you did it, but you weren't allowed to, you couldn't ask your youth minister anything. You didn't ask the pastor. You like, this is what is being taught. This is what is being said. There's no room for questioning it or asking questions, because it is what it is and it's written and this is what it is. And there's no room for questioning. So when I started going to Trinity, I'm like, oh, you are allowed to question. You are allowed to have discussions, because I grew up very strict that you weren't, that was not an option.
Well, and it isn't, I mean, and it isn't for some, for some, I don't know if I would say for many. But, you know, this is not what we're based on. What we're based on is asking probably as many questions as we can. And that what Pete Enns writes about in this book is so the whole using wisdom as that which I don't think that's, I want to say, gives us permission to ask those questions, to transpose, to sing a different song. Most definitely based on the original song, right? I mean, we're not writing a new one here, but we are most definitely writing in a different key, or with a different rhythm. However you want to move that metaphor along. I have a really, this might just be me, but it's just fascinated me. So on page 36 in the footnote, asterisk, it is actually, he says, as in Exodus 15, a song celebrating Israel's deliverance from Egyptian slavery, which begins, "The Lord is a warrior. Pharaoh's chariots and his army he cast into the sea," and we read drowned. The chariots and the charioteers. And what I hear now in my head is the reading we must read every single Easter Vigil.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's the way the prayer book states it. And how many years ago, Sharon, did we not reading that one? We will be thrown into the pits of despair, I think, because of that. COVID? Was it COVID?
And it's one of the three that you have to read.
You have to read. So what do you do with something like that? I
have a problem with that verse.
Which is why I can't do it anymore. I can't read that one in a liturgical setting with a congregation gathered and not do anything with it. Not, say something about it. I can't do that anymore. And I guess since I'm retired now, I have that freedom.
Sorry to interrupt, Kathy, but doesn't that, and that goes back to something I was thinking in the previous discussion, is that what we hear from the lectionary in church every Sunday is polished. It's the stuff that, we hear, this is the word of the Lord. And it's stuff that doesn't invite questioning. It's Bible verses that are easy to apply to our lives in some way and to hear as being inerrant. And there's not an opportunity to raise your hand and ask questions, or to, there's not I, even in our church, like I can't think of the last time someone, admonished me to know my Bible or set an expectation for Bible study. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm not sure
Yeah.
entirely where I'm going with that.
no,
I have to break in and say, Kathy, the problem I have with and I looked it up in the prayer book, canticleate. I always feel sorry for the horses. They were totally innocent.
there was a lot of innocent in that story.
You know, and I mean,
Yeah.
the soldiers that were told to follow, I mean, they were following, Of course, then you get into you can get into the weeds with a lot of things, with the whole Holocaust, and they were just following orders, and so
Look what's
let's not go
happening
into
in
that weed.
Gaza.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Let's not go into that.
Sharon, were you going to say something?
Well, I think Tom's last comment was really interesting in that I can't speak to how it works in other churches, but in the Episcopal Church, you're absolutely right. There is no emphasis on Bible study.
Oh, heavens, no. First time I got into Bible study was when I was married and started listening to J. Vernon McGee while I did the dishes. Seriously, I never, ever.
No.
That's-
But
and I think
there-
that's not a good thing.
There is an openness to question your faith and to be comfortable with that and to, like very welcoming in that sense.
I just think we struggle with the rigors of Bible study in this. I mean, in this modern age. So how do we define that? I mean, the last 50 years. I just pulled that number out of my hat, but as a leader of a congregation, getting people to do anything is hard work. And getting people to do the most important and challenging thing, which is to study their Bible, question their faith, exercise their mind and their heart to come up with a statement that that has something to do with their own faith. That's it's not just hard work about people putting the time and effort into that. It's that it challenges the very fiber of our being and who we are.
And it's scary.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
It's scary. It is. And so it is so much less scary. You all know this. This is not new news. It is so much less scary to just let somebody tell you what to think.
Yeah.
And then you can band
And here
together
we
with
are.
you can band together with the people who think just like you do.
Yep.
And do stupid stuff.
I have a friend who is in that, and I love her dearly, and she's a former music teacher who says she's of a certain, and I'm not going to give one word or another, a certain mentality of
Persuasion.
persuasion.
Yeah.
And she said, well, I don't have any friends that don't think like me, except me.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I
That would
thought
be very
okay,
boring.
then she's part of the Wisconsin Synod Lutheran Church, and
Okay.
but it was like, oh shoot, well, let's see. I don't have any friends who do think like me. I'm about the other end. All my
Look at
friends
you
are-
and me, Ann, and we're friends.
That's
And
what I just
sometimes-
said. All my
Sometimes
friends-
that's a lonely place to be, isn't it?
well, it
It's
is
very
actually.
lonely.
But I love you all. I love everybody dearly. And of course, I'm growing and I'm expanding. Yes, I'm expanding. Please pray that I behave better food. And
very often I sit and think, my God, they all just think I'm crazy, don't they?
Well, my children all think I'm crazy because not one of them probably believe in anything that I like. I'll say something, I'll look at me like I had literally just slapped them in the face. And I'm like, okay, I will walk away.
Oh, there you
I
go.
think our kids are all like that, Wendy. I'm pretty sure Beth and Daniel think that.
Well, and part of it, so you all know that I've had some, really hard conversations with my son Tom,
Mhm.
and the one thing about him is that he's willing to have a conversation, and he's willing to say, "I'm just not sure anymore, Mom,"
Mhm.
and as if you ever were, Tom. I mean, I don't know that he was. I mean, I've never had any expectation
Right.
for anybody to be sure about any of this, but so some of my response has been, we're not called to be certain. We're not called to be sure. We are called to be in relationship. And what does that then look like? And I think part of what that looks like for a liturgically immersed person like my son Tom would be to attend to church, to read, to talk, to have conversation, and if one day you figure it out, yay, but probably
And
not.
if you still believe that the next day, you're really doing well.
You're doing really, really well. Yeah. Yeah. And
I
I
feel like
think go
if
ahead.
my kids, I would say if my kids like wake up and they're willing to get out of bed, I feel like that is a win because it is hard for these children. It's hard for anybody, but I have to say this day and age for any child that is under the age of 22, it is a hard, cruel world for them to wake up and
Amen.
yes,
Yeah.
I want to do this today. Yes, I'm going to walk out my front door today and I'm going to live life because I could not imagine being a young person in today's society and walking out that door and not knowing what's going to slap you in the face the minute you walk out that door.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't.
And that's,
I can't.
and that's where I think, and I will bring him Christopher because grandma was very good. He and Aurora have been looking around churches, and she was raised Lutheran and he's Luther Palian. And I think that part of that insecurity is what draws some of them to the churches who will give them, here's what you need to have.
I agree.
It gives them that, rather than, yes, we can accept or we can handle this, but with everything else that has to be handled, that's one place. And, so I didn't say anything when he says, well, we've been going to New Life because there's young folks. And I thought, yeah, and they kind of give you this box. And I think a lot of people are drawn to the need for that security.
That security. They are. They
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
How long is that
All of us
last?
are. All of us are. I mean, it is hard to sit here anywhere and open that door
Mhm.
because it's easy, because you want to say, I need this.
Mhm. Yeah.
But then God does not promise us that security, except in Jesus, where he says, don't be afraid because in the world you will have tribulation. Don't be afraid, I've overcome the world. So you have that bigger out.
But it's not a box.
No, it's not. I don't know how to draw it.
That's a freedom. I mean,
Yeah, it's not.
that's what's scary. Freedom is scary.
Or like on the bottom of page 34.
Gee, we're moving fast today.
Pete N says Proverbs doesn't do the heavy lifting for us. It alerts us that we have to. We cannot escape that sacred responsibility ever. But a lot of people just aren't there yet, I guess.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like I
And
said,
they want somebody to do that heavy lifting
For
them.
them. Yeah.
To go back to what Wendy was saying too about the kids and about our call to be in relationship, like the digital era and social media, it's possible to be in relationship and to be in healthy conflict, but the platforms are designed to encourage and curate and foster the opposite of that,
Yes.
like to stifle healthy discussion and to give, the antagonists, the thoughtless antagonists, the opportunity to thrive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as that's the way the algorithms work on that. And
Mhm.
and it's hard not to know the difference between that and other platforms like this. I mean,
Mhm.
we would not have been able to have this conversation
Without.
previous to
Absolutely.
Right,
COVID.
but if that's where
But
you're
that,
spending most of your time and that's where you're doing your growing up during your formative years, then that's the style of communication. That's the expectation of reaction from other
right,
people that you're going to carry out into the real world, into
Mhm.
your other interactions.
Yeah.
right.
It's
I want,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
on page 35 at the top, I think following what Sharon was reading on the bottom that I liked. Knowing what to do, he says they look like rules to live by. Knowing what to do is more than reading about it. It's learning to read the moment, the day in and day out gray situations that befall us without forewarning. And then going back, which could go into like Facebook, how to handle nasty comments or what to spend your money on, or the different things about this is what you need to read to eat for arthritis. No, this is what you need not to eat for arthritis, but they're the same thing. Okay.
Yeah. 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 I mean, so how in this world do we have robust Bible study with children and all sorts and kinds of people, so that when they walk out their front door and they're confronted with all of and that's sort of the metaphorical front door as well, because I mean there's the front door of Facebook too. So to be able to approach the world in a way that invites wisdom, that invites the pursuit of the question, not the certainty of the answer. That invites the conversation that is not judgmental, but is productive and fruitful.
I think a lot of people feel
Gives
that if
truth
it's not judgmental, that it's not an answer.
and
There's
gives
so
truth
much of
to the
that around,
situation.
Truth, Jane, you're not saying?
The truth to the situation.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And that's what Peter Enns is saying, is that is work. That is challenge. That is deep reading, deep discussion, deep connection.
Mhm.
All I can say is that when you all were children, at least your Bible study was in a language you spoke.
You didn't speak Hebrew?
No, or understand a lick of it. And we had to do Bible study, Torah study in Hebrew, because God understands Hebrew better than he understands English. He
Okay,
likes that better.
Really?
And
I
that's
thought that God
exactly what we
understood
were told.
Latin better than anything else.
Yeah, it's Latin. Latin is the
Well, clearly
I
you
th-
were wrong.
I think God hates the same people I hate.
I do remember I was tiny, but it was Latin in those days.
And I never was exposed to any Bible study as a child. Sunday school was under the Seabury curriculum series, and it was pretty much. of
I
nothing.
think I was in Bible study with adults.
Me too.
Because there wasn't I don't recall, but I free of my own choice. I walked from my house to the Catholic Church on whatever night of the week that was, Wednesday nights or
Wednesday nights probably.
I can't remember what that was because I went to youth group on Sunday nights because I kind of liked youth group. But I went to Bible study and something must have rubbed off on me, but
I guess.
kept at it since then. So I guess that's a good thing.
I think one of the sadder things, and it's something I do regret, that other denominations are better at, is
I tried
I
waking.
regret that we did not have that kind of, in the 50s and 60s, the Bible study.
Well,
or-
we as
Mm.
Episcopalians chose the school model.
Not quite.
Children come to Sunday school. They sit in chairs and they listen to whatever it is the teacher has to say to them. It was no different than Monday through Friday, and I think we made a huge mistake then.
I agree with
And
that.
I think we're reaping the consequences of that huge mistake.
Yeah.
But
I think we were
again,
very
how were
blessed.
we to know that
Mm.
that was a huge mistake? I just
I
hope.
think
I mean, we've had the Godly Play curriculum now
Yep.
for 30
Years, yeah.
years because when I started at St. Luke's, we put together all those Godly Play manipulatives, all those stories, and started teaching, and that's Bible study.
That is. and that's
Godly
just
Play
us.
is Bible study.
Mhm.
And that's, I think, just the necessary way to do it. Go
Well,
ahead, Jane. Let's let Jane go.
I think I was very blessed regarding questioning. My mother was a Methodist, my dad a Catholic, and she married the Catholic. But because the Catholic Church says you should never attend another church, when Grandma, my mom's mother, came to town, we went to the Methodist Church. That set me to questioning.
Mm.
And I've been very blessed in the ability to question.
Mhm.
Yep.
Well, I'm being raised Episcopalian, and we've always questioned. That's sort of part of the deal.
I
So
don't
I was
think I've
gonna-
always come up with the answer, but
In here. I'll be right back.
Are you a cradle Episcopalian?
Who, me?
Uh, I am, but I didn't, I guess it sort of depends on how you define cradle, because I didn't start going to church until I was probably 8 or 9. So when I was baptized, I was old enough to answer the questions myself, but I've only ever been raised in the Episcopal Church.
So I was gonna say, once my children reach a certain age, I kind of let them decide if and when they want to go to church, because I never wanted, because I was forced from the time I was little, and when I was old enough to move out of the house, I didn't go to church for a long, long time because it was something I was made to do. So then now that all of my children, well, with the exception of Vivi's, because she's only 8, so she has to go where I go, right? But they all have that choice. Like I said, if you're not feeling it, because I feel like there's some Sundays where I'm just not feeling it, I'm not going, I will join online for whatever reason. So I said, why don't our older children have that choice? If they don't want to go to church, why are we saying you have to go? Why are we making them sit through a service that they have no desire to sit through? Whatever is going on, I don't feel like it's my job to force a child to go to church if that's not what they want to do. I think it is a decision. They're old enough to make up their own minds. So on Sundays, if it's my weekend with the girls, I'll wake them both up and say, we're going to church. Are you coming or are you staying? That way it's their choice. And most of the time they both say, yeah, well, I'll go. I want to go. But there's sometimes they're like, Mom, I'm just really tired. Or I'm just not feeling good, or for whatever reason. And I think every child at a certain age should have that choice. And I've been told that I'm very wrong by certain people, and that, oh, you need to make your child go to church and they don't have a say. And I'm like, but they do. Just like if they don't want to eat pork chops for dinner, they can go make a peanut butter and jelly, right? I feel like it's either all or nothing. Like you either have a choice in life or you don't.
So I think I take issue with the opinion that my children should choose their route but without any knowledge, because how do you do that with no,
Right.
I mean, so what that means to me is that we teach the
Mhm.
Bible from a very, very young age.
Which I did. Yep.
And then choice, freedom, all of those things come into play. But
Right.
how can you make a choice like that when you have absolutely
No idea.
no idea what that means? I mean, and I'm an absolute believer in infant baptism and God's grace and
Absolutely.
and God's, God's power to call one to a path. I'm not, I won't stop believing in that, but I think we have a lot of work to do in the whole midst of that, with teaching our children and teaching all of our people. I mean, and when I say that teaching, I don't mean, that the expert is the teacher and you pour knowledge into somebody else. It's so much more rabbinical, so much more about together let us do this work, which is why godly play is so fabulous, because what do we do with the story once we tell it? I wonder. I
Mhm.
wonder who these people are. I wonder what this means. I wonder if you're in this story. I wonder what this is. And that's what we always need to be doing. Okay, Jane's time.
I think there is a lot to be said for worshiping God in public and telling the world that you believe God loves you.
I do too, if that's the truth, if that's what I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, I do too. I think that that's absolutely true.
And I think that's why you should go to church. So
But
that the world knows.
if you don't have this knowledge, if you don't have this biblical knowledge,
But that's part of the parent thing is what I'm looking at too.
how do you even get there? How do you even get there? I don't
Well,
know.
I think
It's tough because as kids are growing up, they're showing more responsibility and earning more freedom. Okay, now you can stay up later, you can do these things. But, for me, I consider my spiritual health a part of my health as I do my physical and my mental. And like, yeah, I'll give my kids some freedom. But am I going to let them stop going to church entirely? Am I going to let them decide that that's not a part that's important to them? And they're just gonna let that go?
no, I think that it's a balance. And I know that our kids, there was never a question, but they never, I was blessed or crazy, we were weird or something. We never had, they never had a thing that says, I don't want to if I'm not sick or what, if I'm not sick or whatever. So I'll use our grandson. So Christopher did not have the best, the Lutheran church for him was difficult, the school and the religion. And so he kind of shies away from that. But the Episcopal Church and some others where he's going, whatever, with girlfriend, whatever, he feels more comfortable. Nicholas was just fine.
Yeah, well, that's
And
the way. Yeah.
and he has no doubt, no problem, no, that I know of. And he will go even if he doesn't have to serve. And he said something, well, mom asked me, so I will, but he's growing, he's learning. And when he had religion class, I will say the sidebar, St. Paul's has a wonderful young man named John who does the youth ministry. and the religion classes, and he is excellent. And he said at one point, Nicholas is just such a blessing to have in religion class. So he can concept and think, but you know, it's a balance. You don't want to
Right,
push and
right.
push and push and make them hate it.
Right.
Yeah.
And at the same time, if you say, well, whatever they want to do when they're ready, then they sometimes don't get anything. And I think that there's that
Right.
balance. You have to,
And that's a tough balance.
you have to
That's
bring
a tough-
them, you have to bring them to the experience.
Right.
Because
I'm very
they're not-
thankful that my girls like going to church, but I'm just saying there are exceptions where
well, I
it's
understand.
still
what
a
you're saying.
choice. You know,
Yeah.
there's still a choice. So
Yeah,
if you
there'll always be that.
And you
Right.
gave them that background. I mean,
I did.
when they were in elementary and middle school, they came every Sunday.
They sure
And I
did.
know that because I picked them up.
You see, and
And-
it's that
But
beginning.
now that they're in high school, I
Well,
agree, if you force them, then they'll really hate it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'm at, where my children are not babies, they're not, and they know what they've been taught and they know what they believe in and they know what they love in their heart of hearts. And I feel very good if they don't want, if for whatever reason they're not feeling church, they don't want to go to church. I'm not afraid that they're going to get rid of church altogether because they don't go this one Sunday.
No.
Christmas, Easter, Pentecost. If you're not throwing up or bleeding, get in the car.
Yep.
There you go.
And my boys, even, when they moved out and, my boys still attended for all the major, if I could get them here, they did.
Yeah.
And it's the building, I think it's the building up of the sense of again, it's the relationship. It's the community, which the New Testament.
And I think if we do instill in our own biological children and other children that we do have in our lives, that these are really these are the stories. This is a really important thing. And as you grow and you find, the frustration is, as Wendy started with, is going out that front door being so challenging. And I want children and young adults to be able to say, this is my faith community of choice, whatever that may be. This is my faith community of choice, and I am going to live a robust life within it, and that is what makes it possible for me to go out the front door and meet the day, and to be able to have a center, a physicalness and a spiritualness in that place that helps me to not just endure it, but to actually embrace it. And oh my gosh, I think that's just a huge dream. But all of us have that within us to help make that possible. Again, in the community of faith that we choose.
Yeah, I mean, those of us that are musicians, I've played in just about, well, I haven't played in the fundamentalist churches, but I played in Roman Catholic, Lutheran, Episcopal, Baptist, Methodist, I've played them. And at one point, so I've had a good look at what each group is offering, or what their the spirituality is that they're coming to or from, and and then I come back and I say, yes, I dearly love the Methodist people. If they come back with us, they're going to have a tough time getting used to liturgy. They are, and then but geez, I miss my place.
Yeah.
It's the community. Yes, it's the liturgy. It's the everything, and it's the who we are that I think finally drives us. And I think that's what Proverbs, because God knows we've discussed a whole 2 pages, folks. I think that's what Proverbs is driving into with wisdom. It just hit me.
Yeah.
that is what Proverbs is saying to be, to take that prudence, to take that, all the things they're saying in that chapter, and especially choose instruction instead of silver.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
wisdom dwell together with prudence. I possess knowledge and discretion, you know, and I think it's that for whatever each one of us finds speaks best, you know, to us.
Well,
Which
So
is
what are we
why
doing for next week? Because it's 10 o'clock.
so we didn't get into chapter 3.
we didn't finish chapter 2.
So either reread or read chapter 3. Sharon, have you read any at all?
I
think
read chapter 3, but I haven't read any
so.
further
We're
than.
into the commandments here.
Let's do that.
And I would suggest that as we continue to go into the weeds, as is our wont,
Mhm.
we just try a chapter a week.
Yeah, I think so.
We're lucky.
Okay, so chapter 3, and read the commandments, and where all over the place are the commandments. There's not just 10 of them in one spot. So let's I was looking at Deuteronomy, right?
Okay.
And Leviticus, all of those places where commandments are there, and we avoid it. Why? Because we just do avoid it for some reason.
Because it's boring to read all that.
Reading all that, and they don't, and because if you stick to 10, then you can be very clear and certain about what the rules are. If you go to the 613,
Oh, please.
it's a little more ambiguous about what we should be doing. But, please don't be putting your dishes next to each other in the cabinet, because that would be a terrible thing.
Don't wash them in the same pan.
Right.
Yeah.
I
My
will
mother
tell you,
kept
Sharon,
culture.
I don't understand that.
So there you go.
Some
613.
people have different dishwashers. We didn't.
2 different dishwashers. Okay, guys.
See you. Love you all. Take care.
We'll
Thank
see
you.
ya. Bye-bye.
Kathy, can I talk to you for just a second?